This is episode 54 of the Women in Depth podcast. The information found in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hi, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lourdes Fiato. I am very excited to share today's conversation with you. My guest is Dr. Sharon Cohen. Dr. Cohen has been on the podcast previously with an episode on advice for dating and keeping a healthy love relationship. Today, Dr. Sharon is going to deepen our understanding about an experience that many professional women have, and that is being super successful in the work arena, but failing in their romantic relationships. Dr. Sharon will discuss the factors that lead to successful women struggling with their relationships and how these women can begin to create the romantic relationships they desire. Dr. Sharon Cohen works with professional women who, despite having success in their professional life, fail at making romantic relationships work. She helps them create committed, stable, deeply loving relationships. While her physical office is in Newport Beach, California, Dr. Sharon works with women from all across the country who have sought her out to get her unique, educational, and action-oriented program. Working with women who aren't finding success in love and helping them have success when they didn't think it was possible has been especially rewarding to Sharon because although she has always held out hope, Sharon found the love of her life at a later age after doing much work on herself. And it wasn't until she went through a process similar to what she takes her clients through that she got to the root of what was holding her back from having the love she always dreamed of. Now it's her joy to pass the lessons on, create the opportunities for breakthrough and transformations, and help other women have the love they are so worthy of. Hi, Dr. Sharon, and welcome back to the Women in Depth podcast.
Thanks, Lourdes. I'm really honored to be back.
I am very excited about having you back as well. Your previous episode where we talked about dating was one of our most downloaded episodes, and it was also featured as Best in Mental Health in the Social Work Career Digest. So, it was a well-received, and there was a lot of good stuff in it. And so I know that this episode as well is going to really resonate with listeners.
Oh, that is so awesome. That's such a wonderful thing to hear, and it's just so exciting. I'm just so happy to be here with you and look forward to our conversation today.
So today's topic is one that I see frequently in my practice, and I see it, among family, friends, and it has to do with professional women who are super successful at work, but when it comes to their romantic relationships, it's a different story. And so I wanted to ask you, because this is an area that you focus on, you work with women who are in this experience, how you were drawn to this.
Oh, it's great. It's a great question. I think the reason why I'm drawn to this is basically because I'm part of this tribe or have been part of this tribe. And I think that's where a lot of us who are in this field is that we're, it's our personal wound that drives us towards a certain area. And I, as we talked about in our last podcast, I was a later bride, and I, although I never lost hope in finding my man, my dream man, I certainly was uncertain, like how it was going to happen. And so because I kind of needed someone to help show me the way, I had done a lot of personal work and seen therapists and whatnot. It wasn't until I had gotten to a certain mentor who helped me get through kind of the lasered in focus of getting through what's that deep dark issue that just no one else has gotten to. And until you get to that one core issue, you can't really blossom past it. You can't really get through that roadblock. And I think a lot of career women, because they're working so hard, they come up with a lot of excuses as to why they're not focusing on that issue. They're busy working, they don't have enough time, it's not important right now. There's so many things that we can do to get out of the way of not putting our relationship first, putting our love life first. And so I think I did the same thing. And so I think that's why this has become my focus, because there were definitely deep, dark moments of loneliness and sadness about this for me. But I ultimately really wanted to help other people find the love that I've found in my life.
I wanted to just, when you were speaking, what stood out for me initially was, you talked about the deep, dark issue, and that it's so important to get to that and to work through that in order for, your relationships to be where you want them to be. And I think that is so true and so profound. And I also feel like that's why people struggle so much, because we try to fix things on the surface and we don't want to go deep, because going deep or going dark can be painful and difficult. But really, for meaningful change to happen, for me, at least in the work I do with my clients and the work I've done with myself, that's been the way to the relationships I want, to feeling good about myself. You just can't do the surface stuff.
Right, absolutely. And, and it doesn't have to necessarily take a long time to get there, and I think that's a little bit about what's different about what I do is my initial program with people is 3 months. So it's not like a year or 2 years. It's 3 months, but I'm laser focused. Since I focus on one thing, I'm not focused on, there's not a broad focus of what I'm doing. I'm focused on your relationships and love. And so because I'm just focused on that one thing, just this one part of your life, that we go there and we go there fast.
Yeah.
And because of that, I just like laser, let's get there. Like what? and it's, like I want to find out.
Yeah.
And so, and also because I'm doing a lot of training and education. And so with that, it's about like, here's what I'm seeing, and here's what I know about this issue. And the two things put together really allow for a deep dive really fast, and not so that it's opening anyone up too quickly, because I'm not really dealing with people who are in a heavy depression or anything like that with like a mental health issue. It's just people who are having a hard time with love. And so it's a little different than like a mental health where you really can't do that. You can't really dive deep and be unsafe about it.
So why is this topic so important? Why does it matter?
It's an interesting thing because more and more women are becoming successful and men are actually becoming less successful, and I don't know if most people know this, but right now, I think 38% of women have a bachelor's degree and only 30% of men do in the younger age group. So we're having women kind of rise up more quickly than men are right now. And as that happens, as women are becoming more successful, we really need to have women learning how to deal with maybe being the more successful one in the relationship. And that changes the dynamic in a relationship. And interestingly enough, I think a lot of women have said, well, if I'm more successful at work, that makes me less likable. And actually, Harvard Business Review has found that that's not true at all, that success for women doesn't really change their likability. And actually, it changes the likability of men more. It makes them less likable. Again, this is as an aggregate. Individually, it may make you less likable if you take on less likable characteristics and less likable behaviors. But as an aggregate, it's not true. So, however, we need to look at the skills that you learn to compete successfully in the workforce, if you're competitive in the workforce and then you take that home with your partner, basically, who wants to be with a really competitive partner? It's not fun to be with someone who's competitive all the time, who challenges your every thought, idea, and suggestion. So that's something that we need to look at, and that's again something that I help women with, is that if you're arguing and being competitive with your partner, I wouldn't want to be with that as a woman, and men certainly don't want to be with that either. So it's important because these are the skills that you need to have in order to have a successful relationship, is learning how to complementarily interact with your partner.
So what I'm hearing then, if I'm hearing this correctly, is that the skill sets that work for a woman in the workforce in her career or vocation aren't necessarily going to be successful in terms of a relationship.
Absolutely, because we all have to, those skills that we need to succeed out in our daily life are actually our masculine energy skills, compete, conquer, control. Those are the ones that we need. Everybody, men and women, need to use those skills out to get the work done in our daily life. Our feminine energy skills, being more passive, patient, vulnerable. If we were always in our feminine energy, then we'd be sitting on the couch every day waiting for someone to, bring us bonbons and, relaxing on the couch. We would not get a job. We would not get off the couch to go get ourselves food at the grocery store. We wouldn't manage our lives very well. So we need our masculine energy, because let's go back a step. We're all androgynous beings. We're all a psychological mixture of masculine and feminine energy. And so in order to make it out in the world, we all need that masculine energy to have our lives be managed, and so we need that masculine energy. But when we get into a relationship, we need to decide which energy we're going to be acting from. And so you have a decision. Do you want to work from your masculine energy or your feminine energy? And it's not gender based. So you could be, as a woman, the masculine energy in the relationship and have the man be the feminine energy, but you have to have that sort of be a conscious decision. And so in the workforce, you're going to be the masculine energy at the workforce. You're going to be competitive and you're going to be, in control. And but now you've got to decide when you come home, are you going to be the masculine energy at home, or is the man going to be the masculine energy at home? And if he's going to be the masculine energy, then you've got to figure out how to take off that masculine mask that you've had at work and be the feminine energy, and learn how to complementarily, make that dance work at home.
So that our listeners can have a good idea of what you mean by the masculine and feminine energies, because I think sometimes they can be confused with gender, and they may also not really understand what this means and how it can look like when a woman bumps up against this in her relationships and it becomes a problem. So maybe if you could give some examples of these energies not working well.
Sure. Yeah. So a great example of that is when a woman comes home from work and she starts teaching and preaching to her husband or to her boyfriend or partner. And so she starts telling him how to solve problems and tells him how to do things. So she might say, is that really how you want to do that? He's like, say, in the middle of trying to fix something. It could be anything. It could be he's moving the TV for her. Maybe he's moving the couch for her, or he's setting the table or unloading the dishwasher, and she's telling him how to do it differently. That's a recipe for disaster, because he will either never unload the dishwasher again, or set the table for her again, or set the table again. Or they'll get into an argument about how, the couch looks great here, or, I'm hanging this picture in the right spot here. That's just a matter of we have to let men solve the problem their way. There's a million different ways to get from point A to point B, and we're not always right. Just because we think that we can do it better and smarter and faster and more efficiently, it doesn't mean that our way is the only way.
So it's almost giving permission, allowing space for the way that the man wants to do this, and that being okay.
Absolutely. I mean, it all comes down to acceptance. And we have to accept that everybody has the right to be, to feel, to think, to share exactly who they are. Even if we don't agree with it, we have to accept that they have the right to be who they are. And I think that's really, really hard for a lot of people to accept, that we're two separate individuals and we don't have to do everything the same way. We don't have to think the same way. And we just need to allow each other, just like you just said, the space to be different people living under the same roof. And I really think, like, when people can grasp that reality, their lives become so much easier and so much more peaceful.
Yeah, what came to mind as you were describing this is, for me, and I think this, a lot of moms can probably relate to this, is that, my husband does things very differently at dinner and bath time with our son than I would do. And so, of course, I like the way that I do it. Okay. And,
right.
But now I realize too that when I come home and he's doing that's okay. They're going to have a different dinner and bath time experience than when I'm doing it. And that's totally okay. And just to let that happen.
Not only is it totally okay, it's kind of cool for your kid.
Right.
Like, it's a different experience with mommy than it is with daddy. And it's, it's not like so done by the book that it's exactly the same with each one. He gets to have unique experiences, and not everything is exactly the same. I think that's wonderful.
So what are some of the excuses that women come up with that get in the way of them maybe finding and keeping a relationship that they really want?
So some of the excuses that get in the way for women in finding and keeping a relationship they really want are that, there's not enough good men out there.
I hear that. I hear that one too.
Right? I mean, that's huge. There's not enough good men, not enough quality men. The men who are out there are just the discarded crap that other women don't want. They are that there's not enough time, that I'm just too busy and exhausted from work and having kids. Or if it's not having kids, I'm just tired from dating and I'm over it. I'm done. I just don't feel hopeful anymore. Wow. I mean, the list goes on and on. It really just does go on and on. The list is as long as there are women out there.
So it's almost that these excuses that they come up with really kind of hide what you were saying, that they go back to that truth, that the truth beneath the excuse.
Yeah. And I think the truth is that underneath it all, there's, we all have this need to be loved and known and seen and heard and understood. But what's happened is that there's this garden mask of a, little girl who wants to be held and loved, but that's become so covered up that some women have a really hard time even admitting that that little girl is there. That no, like, I want to remain in control. I'm happier in control. They're
Right.
terrified of releasing the reins to somebody else, and they don't want to release the reins. They're so terrified of allowing somebody else to be in charge.
So it's this fear of being vulnerable, and this fear that, I hear this one a lot, is I just don't want to be hurt, and my thoughts with that are, if no one can get in to hurt you, no one can get in to love you either. So
Absolutely. It's a
yeah.
risk. It's
Mhm.
absolutely a risk that we take. There's no guarantees because every relationship is going to either end in death or divorce. And obviously, I don't necessarily mean a literal, legal divorce, but a divorce of, a friendship's going to end, a relationship's going to end. Somehow we're going to separate.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen because everything is impermanent. Everything.
Yeah. One of my mentors, James Hollis, actually, he said it more beautifully, but it was along the lines of that everyone in our lives is going to leave us at one point.
That's right.
You know?
That's absolutely true. And it's
Yeah.
sad. It's a painful reality.
Yeah.
But once we accept that reality, it's like it can bring us peace because then we don't have to like grasp on so tightly. We can just sort of let go and know that that when someone does leave, like this is the normal course of events.
Yeah. Yeah. So for women who, who find themselves in this situation where they're struggling with their relationships, what are some of the unique factors that you see them having in common? When a woman comes to you, you can already, have a good idea that these are the things that are getting in her way that we need to work on.
Well, I think what makes, first of all, these women kind of vulnerable to having this as their issue is that so many of them, and I want to recognize that I'm talking in generalities because this isn't going to hold true for every female in the workforce who has difficulties with relationships, but for many of them, they come from a background where they've had a daddy who was absent in some way. And I want to explain that because their father may have been completely there, as a father. He provided a home financially. He was supportive. He was supportive of what she did and how she performed. Again, her masculine energy activities were celebrated, but when it came to her feelings, he didn't know how to handle them. And since we develop our ability to have a relationship based on our opposite gendered parent, if as a woman, our daddy didn't know how to say, how do you feel, or how can I help you feel better, and then actually help us feel better, then we either learned how to stuff our feelings or numb them. And then, kind of going on further, if our father was completely absent, then what happens is we end up becoming our own father. Since our father's kind of like a shield for us, there to protect us, if he's not there, then we have to do it for ourselves. So then we become, guarded, protective, competitive. I can handle it. I don't need anyone. I'll help you. And then we start over giving and taking care of other people's feelings and protecting other people because we believe that it's our duty and that we see other people as more vulnerable than ourselves because we've learned how to be strong. But really, again, it goes back to we've just developed a mask to take care of ourselves. And so once you strip away that mask, there's that tender, vulnerable little girl wanting to be held and who's, again, really scared to let anyone else take control. So I think that that's what's unique to these women that makes them vulnerable to being in this position. Another one of the qualities that I find with these women is that they have a number of beliefs that just kind of aren't really true, that they believe that men don't like smart women, that men are intimidated by me, or that men don't like independent women. And these aren't really true beliefs. Men love smart women, but they don't like competitive women. Again, it goes back to they don't like women who challenge their every thought, idea, suggestion, or plan. It appears argumentative. So you don't need to dim your light to be with a man, but you just have to be open to someone else's ideas. And men aren't intimidated by you, but perhaps you're coming off as aloof or disinterested or indifferent. Men like the chase, but they have to have some sense that you're interested in them at some level. So you need to respond when he calls or texts. So it goes back to you just don't want to be rude. And again, men are attracted to women. As far as men not liking independent women, they do like women who are independent. They don't want a clingy woman. They don't want someone who is needy and can't take care of herself. They want a woman who is able to relate, though, and who is able to connect. They want a woman who, I hear so often men say they want a partner who has my back and I'll have hers. That's like one of the most common phrases I hear.
Yeah.
So interdependence, being mutually reliant on one another. I think that's a really big thing. Yeah, I just think the really big thing is like, you have to be willing to accept influence and support and help from a man, because otherwise he's left wondering, like, what am I here for?
Right. Yeah. It's one of the things too, I hear that, when a woman will say something along the lines that, I don't need a man. And there's a difference between needing a man. There's a lot to that descriptor, but I think we all want to feel that the other person needs us in some way. It doesn't have to be
right
that they need us for financial support or they need us to be strong. But that, like you said, I think the need is, are you there for me and can I count on you?
Right. Absolutely.
And I also feel that, from listening to what you're describing, it sounds like in a relationship that we all aspire to, I guess that ideal relationship, both individuals, it's helpful if they both can show up with the blend of their masculine and feminine energies, because it seems like what happens with successful women, and I can relate to this, at a certain time in my life where it was just all masculine energy. I didn't want to really be vulnerable or share my feelings or appear that I could be hurt. And so all of that was kind of moving through the world and moving relationally with my defenses up.
Yeah, and you're not alone. I will never forget talking to, it was a friend of a friend, and she was about to get married. And I remember her saying that she was taking care of the wedding and she was going to be paying for this and she was going to be doing that. I mean, she was taking care of everything. And her fiance said, well, what is it that you want me to do? And she was like, well, what is it? Like, he doesn't think that I can take care of this? And she was like offended at his question. And I just looked at her and I said, I'm just not clear. What do you need him for? And I may have even said this on the last podcast, because it was something that has stuck with me for years, because she got it really quick. She got the message really quick. She's like, you're right. It doesn't seem like I need him. And I don't know why I got so offended at his question, because she was so stuck in this. It's like, I don't know what us women are fighting for. Like in these moments of like, it's like we feel like a man is saying that we're stupid by asking us, how can I help you? What can I do for you? And it's like, no, they just want to help us. They really just want to help. But somehow we take it. And when I say we, I'm totally saying a generality here, and I recognize that. But when I say, when they say, how can I help you or what can I do for you? Somehow they're saying to us, you're too stupid. You can't handle this yourself. And that's not what they're saying.
Or we take it as they should know. I shouldn't have to spell it out for them.
Right.
Or, if they really love me or if they've been paying attention, then they should know what I want. Or the other thing too is that if they offer a different suggestion, we take it personally that, well, what's wrong? What's wrong with my idea? Or you don't like my idea? It's just, we get very defensive around these things.
We do. And it's like we expect them to be mind readers, or we expect them not to offend us in some way, shape, or form. And I just think to myself, why are we so sensitive or defensive around a man not knowing or asking us if we need help? Like, where does that come from for us?
Right. And then the other piece too is, and I see this as, let's say the man does come up with an idea. If we, and again, I'm also speaking in generalities, we may respond by attacking the idea or putting the idea down, or where the man doesn't even feel like he can even show up with his own ideas because they're not good enough, they're not received well. So even the response to something that maybe we disagree with, there's a difficulty in disagreeing in a kind way.
Right. That is a fact. I mean, I was just talking to a client yesterday, and she had the realization of him saying something, and the way she responded was in an attacking way, rather than saying, "Wow, I really appreciate you coming up with that idea. However, it doesn't feel that doesn't feel good to me. What do you think about coming up with a different plan?" Like
Yeah.
something that would be a little bit more kind than just like, "No, I don't like that idea." you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Sharon, let's say there's a woman who's listening and she is wanting to begin to make some shifts. What are some first steps that you would suggest for her?
Well, you know what? One of the biggest things I think is to really start to listen to yourself and listen to how you're speaking to someone, to speaking to your partner, to speaking to dates. Listen to your words. Are you being, I don't know, meaner than you mean to be? Are you being appreciative? Are you being kind? Are you being, loving with your words? Or are you being dismissive and competitive? Or a little bit negative and nastier than you mean to be. And that may be really hard to evaluate because sometimes we don't hear our tone and, just the words, we don't hear them as how they come out to other people. So, but that's huge. The language we use and the power of our words is massive in how we come off to other people. So language is massive.
And I wanted to add to that too. A big part is our tone, the way it's said.
Huge.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's huge. The other thing is I would say really open up your heart to there's a guy named Taby Kaler who teaches to, instead of trying to be perfect with what you're doing, to be excellent, strive for excellence. And so with whatever advice you ever get, to just go for being, trying to be, better, to strive for excellence, because we can always do better than we were doing. But so even with my suggestion of working on your language, to not, beat yourself up for, wow, I didn't do it right that time, to be kind to yourself, because the words that we use, I would also say, watch how you're talking to yourself. Because if you're being mean to yourself, if you're saying stuff to yourself that you would never say to anybody else, then I would watch that, because it all starts with how you're, self-love. And if you can't be kind to yourself, then it's probably pretty likely that you're not being kind to other people.
So, Sharon, what are some of your favorite resources for women in this area? And also, if you have any of your own resources or creations that you'd like to share.
Well, you know what, Lourdes, one of the most interesting things is, I think on our last chat, you suggested or brought up the book, The Four Agreements. And I have since then, it came across my awareness. And it's such a fabulous book, because I was so pleased to find how in alignment those agreements are with the way I do my work and the suggestions I carry out in my work. So I would absolutely suggest anybody reads that. I mean, I think the very first one is to be impeccable with your word, and it goes along with what I just said, that how you talk to yourself is where it starts, and how you talk to other people, and then it goes on from there. It's just an amazing book, and if you can integrate those four agreements into your consciousness and world, then you're going to be in a really good place. So that'd probably be the first thing that I would suggest. Actually, that's going to be the only thing I'm going to suggest, because that's how strongly I feel about getting those four agreements integrated into your world. And then other than that, I would suggest, I want to offer your listeners my Breakthrough to Deep Love consultation. And in that phone consultation, what we would do is you will create a sense of clarity about the loving relationship you want to have. You'll discover the essential building blocks for having the partnership of your dreams. You'll determine the number one thing stopping you from having the love you want, and identify the most powerful actions that'll move you towards the romance you desire. and you'll complete the consultation with the excitement of knowing exactly what to do next to create the authentic connection you truly want. And I just, more than anything, want to help women get into the loving relationship that they just are so worthy of having. It's my dream to help rid this world unnecessary loneliness and the lack of connection that's out there in the world, and especially for professional women who have put their love on the back burner and who are just failing in making that romantic connection.
So, Sharon, for those who would like to learn more about you and to also sign up for your Breakthrough to Deep Love phone consultation, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you and find out more about your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way would either be to go to my website and sign up there, which is www.drsharoncohen.com. That's Dr. Sharon, Sharon, Cohen, Cohen.com. Or they can email me at sharon@drsharoncohen.com or call me 949-682-9304, and we can just set it up.
Sharon, thank you so much for coming on the podcast again and for sharing your amazing insights. I know that this is really important, good stuff, good information, and I'm excited that women who hear this can begin to shift their experience of relationship.
Well, me too, Lourdes. Thank you so much for having me, and it's just been such a pleasure. I always love talking to you, and I hope your listeners have enjoyed this conversation. It's definitely been an honor for me.
Oh, thank you, Sharon. And I love your passion around this topic, and I know that the work that you're doing is really making a difference for many women. So thank you.
Thank you. Take care, Lourdes.
Take care. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Dr. Sharon. One thing that grabbed my attention is how the skill set that works so well for women in being successful at work or career does not work so well in intimate relationships. I also loved how Dr. Sharon explained the role of masculine and feminine energies in healthy relationship, and that for both parties, both individuals in the relationship, it's about how that masculine and feminine energy complements each other. I also loved how Dr. Sharon shared some of the misconceptions and beliefs regarding this area that many women have and don't realize how powerful they are and how these beliefs can really block them from experiencing the relationships they desire. For show notes to today's episode and links to the resources mentioned, please visit www.lourdesviado.com/women-in-depth. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe on iTunes or share with a friend. Again, thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.